Welcome to a most insightful date today with Powerful Women Today Live. We have our mentor expert, Marlenne Dawes, to speak to us about taking care of your family through your estate planning. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Marlenne. So good to see you.
Good to see you too, Carolina, always.
Thank you. We have such an important episode today and always, right? And especially for women, because I don't know about you, but as a mom, in a partner and a spouse and in a daughter and sister and all of that, you always have that one person, right, who's got their eye on the big picture and who's got it, who's got you, right, who's got your back. And so today we're going to speak about all the things that you really can do to think ahead and really plan the well-being of your family and protect your family in ways that you may not realize the impact before the crisis comes. That's the key. So tell our friends about you and your practice and why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah, so I'm one of the lawyers at Iron Law Partners, and one of our primary areas of practice is wills and estate planning, trust planning. And we are very passionate about getting people to get these things in place. My partner and I have been doing this for quite some time now, and we still hear the same hesitation, the same procrastination from our clients, from the public in general. But we also see on the flip side what happens when these things aren't in place and who really suffers because of them. And so we're really passionate and excited, and why I'm really excited to be here today about, not just the warning stories, but really giving people a perspective of what it means to do your estate plans and why you need it and who would benefit from it, when you should do it. A lot of questions we get are, when do you need to update it?
You should revisit it too.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Living and breathing, right? It's almost like, I don't know, I can't think of things that at a certain milestone in your life you need to check. It's like, oh, is that still current? Does that still apply? Right?
Yes.
So tell me, who benefits the most from estate planning?
So honestly, everybody who does one. Definitely people, if you own your own businesses, or you have multiple residences that you own, if you are over the age of 65, because there are, extra tax benefits that come when you're over 65. But really anybody who has children should have an estate plan. If you have minors, or you
think that you have to have great fortunes to think of estate planning, right?
No, honestly, yeah. Everybody needs it, truly. But, those people are the ones that will benefit the most from possibly the tax planning of it. But estate planning is not just about the tax planning. It's a big component of it. But if you have young children, you have to choose who's going to be watching over them. If you became ill, or if you passed away, if you have somebody in your family that's on disability, or is dependent on you in some other way, or is a spendthrift, any other family concerns, if you have dynamics that you're worried about, then you need your estate plan to be in place.
You just said something really powerful that I want. I just had that big aha right now as you said it, right?
Yes.
Because oftentimes we think of, okay, wills, yes, it is after, you're no longer around us.
Right.
But estate planning, you just said something really powerful. It is if you are all of a sudden not able right? Like it could
Yeah,
be like a temporary incapacitation. You could be going in for
that's right.
surgery, say, for example, and your recovery is like one day that you're not really capable of making decisions, and something happens, God
Mhm.
forbid, to, to one of your kids, to one of your loved ones, that a decision needs to be made,
Right.
right? Like things can happen, like please, if the last 3 years haven't taught us,
I mean, yes.
can happen, unpredictable things can happen on, on a spot, right?
That's right.
So
Yes.
let's talk a little bit more about that, because there's some serious consequence, like complications, not so much consequences, that sounds so punitive, complications that can occur if you don't have all these in order before
Yeah,
time.
that's right. And you can capable, right? So when you run into those issues and somebody's trying to step in to help you, if you don't have your powers of attorneys in place, then it becomes very difficult for them to do something as simple as going to the bank and getting money for you, or paying some expenses, or paying some bills, or if you have a business and somebody needs to step in and sign for you or make some decisions, whether it's on a short-term basis or a longer-term basis, without choosing who those individuals are, then you are relying on the court to empower somebody and equip them to be able to do that on your behalf. And whenever you're doing that, obviously that's going to be a more expensive process. It's going to be time consuming. And if something urgent is happening, then there could be serious consequences, as you said. Like I don't think it's a hard word.
Yeah,
Truly,
yeah, it's like,
financial and emotional and all of those kinds of things. There are consequences when you're not prepared. You
when
know.
you're not prepared, for sure.
Mhm.
And you gave me a statistic that it kind of like blows your, like, I'm surprised,
Yeah.
but I'll be surprised that people will be surprised
Yes.
that you said that 50% of Canadians, because right now we're speaking of a Canadian, will and
Mhm.
state setup, but could the questions apply no matter where you are in the world? So
Yeah.
you say that 50% of Canadians don't have a state plan or have updated their state plan.
Actually, the updated one is even less. So about 50% of them, 51 Canada-wide, have their estate plans in place. Of those, about 30% actually have them up to date. So some of them might have actually gotten around to doing it when their children were minor, when their circumstances hadn't changed, or when beneficiaries or trustees or whoever they've named
Mhm.
um, were in particular situations, and then they haven't updated them since. So it's a very dire statistic. It makes
Mhm.
us all very nervous. and
Why does it? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the
Mhm.
emotion behind it. What do you think, in your opinion,
Mhm.
what's the hesitance? Is it that you're going to speak trouble into existence?
I
Like
think
what?
there's a couple of things.
Mm,
So I think I would put them in two categories, I guess. The category that doesn't want to talk about it because it's going to make it inevitable, whether it's the illness or the death. So they choose not to talk about it. And talking about it makes them nervous. They feel like they're bringing it on, which obviously is not true, where none of us are in control of that. And then there's the other side that doesn't feel the imminence of it. It's something that you can put off, until you've actually died or you've gotten ill and you
that
don't
we've
feel
got
like you
time,
need it.
right? That's got to be the biggest myth in life, that we know exactly how much time we've got.
That's right. I mean, we're all dealing with how much in a given day. We're all juggling how many balls, whether it's a business, whether it's a family, whether it's children. There's a lot on our plates. And if you're trying to choose something that you can put off till later, your estate plan is often one of those things, that getting your insurance policies in place, whatever it is, like the whole estate planning piece of it tends to be put on the back burner. And honestly, I was guilty of that for a long time as well. As much as I'm a lawyer and I know the ramifications, you get so busy with your work and with your family and with your other obligations that it just kind of keeps going to the back burner. So
So
they
I have
don't
two
feel the
questions.
urgency until they're in those difficult circumstances, unfortunately. But we're
Yeah, you don't
really
want to
trying
do
to.
that, because when you're in the middle of a circumstance,
Mhm.
right? You may not be making the best decisions, or you may be rushed into making a decision that without seeing it all the way through, right? So doing it before anything is occurring is the important time to do it,
Yes.
right? So I want to unpack two things out of what you just said. One is what goes into a estate plan,
Mhm.
for starters,
Yes.
and two, when are the significant milestones that you recommend, um, women or caregiver,
Mhm.
whoever's is in charge of these things in your family, to
Yes.
revisit the agreements or the setups that you have.
Okay, so estate planning involves looking at everything that you have,
Mhm.
how you have it, figuring out what you want to happen in the future. So what is your legacy going to look like? And who are you responsible for? Who do you want to include in that? Who you want to exclude sometimes? And how you want that to look? Do you own a business? Is this business going to continue to run once you are no longer there and able to do that yourself? Is your business going to be wound up? Is it going to be? So it's looking at your whole pool of assets, okay?
Mhm.
And looking at how they will be distributed when you're not here, and possibly the tax benefits and implications of the things that you own. So your estate is the whole pool, it's the bucket of everything that you own. Okay, so what are the tax implications of how these things will eventually be transferred to your loved ones, your beneficiaries, your business owner, partner, and what is it going to cost you? Are you prepared to cover those costs? Is there stuff that should be put in place right now in order to minimize your liabilities, maximize the output to your family and your friends or whoever it is, to charities, whoever it is that you're choosing to include in there, right? So it often involves not just your lawyer, it will likely involve your financial advisor and your accountant, because each of us brings a different lens,
Yeah.
right?
And even it's a
And
big difference. Like even if you're wanting, excuse me, if you're wanting to gift a property,
Mhm.
for example, to your children, it matters how you do it and when you do it, the
That's
tax
right.
implication and the legality of it
That's right.
matters. So it's extremely important to know all those to understand the
Yes,
details and nuances of it.
that's right. And it can have tax implications for you and for your child, right? Depending on on all those things. It also looks at your assets in other jurisdictions if you have them. Then there's more intrinsic planning that needs to happen there, right? If you have foreign beneficiaries or foreign assets, then it's a little more complicated. You know, it looks at the structure of your family and who you need to consider and who could get excluded and how you would want to make sure that they don't. So if you're part of a blended family, if you're in a common law relationship, there are different implications for
That's
you.
right. So, you mentioned who should be excluded,
Mm.
right? Like it sounds dramatic, but could you give us an example of some clauses or some exclusions that you may want to consider when preparing your state or your will?
So it's not necessarily that you should consider excluding anybody. It's dynamics, family dynamics, right? In
Okay.
relationships. Okay. So if you have an estranged child that or an ex-partner or whoever it is that's currently on some of your assets or whatever it is, okay?
Mhm.
Or let's take the child as an example, because that comes up quite a bit. Um, if you're part of a blended family and there's a child that you are estranged from and you do not want them to be beneficiaries of your estate, if you don't have that explicitly in writing, it's either you're going to decide how it's going to look or the government's going to decide. And if the government is going to decide, they're going to include that child by default.
Ooh, or they could contest it as well if you have not specifically said, no, this is how I want it done.
Right. Yes. I mean, once it's written, it's more difficult to contest as long as you were capable of sound mind. You had all the conversations, your lawyer discussed things with you, and it's clear that you've taken into consideration everything that you want to, and this is how you've chosen to write things up. There are
Mhm.
some caveats, right? If you're legally married, then there are things that you can't do. But if it's not written, The government just decides who falls into your category of beneficiaries or your
Mhm.
categories of beneficiaries. Okay, so if you have individuals that you want to exclude, then it's important in those situations to have it written up. Also, there are members of your family or friends or whoever it is that might be dependents, and you wouldn't automatically include them under this government ranking of your beneficiaries, right? So if your parents are reliant on you, if you have cousins, siblings, whatever it is that are reliant on you, and something happens to you and you pass away, then they will not be first in line to get from your inheritance.
And it's as much as whom you want to include
Hmm.
as to how and under what terms,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And these are important conversations. And it's not that you're asking, you're tempting fate. I think you're tempting fate if you don't do it.
100%.
So tell me about the milestones that are a good time, like spring cleaning.
Right.
When you change your time, check your fire alarms, kind of thing. So
Yes.
when are the good milestones for us to remember? Oh, I need to update all my information.
So if you could do it annually just to see
Okay.
where things are, then that's great. And
Mhm.
if it's just, even if it's just a quick check to see, have I accumulated a lot? Have I lost a lot? Have things changed in my beneficiaries, my trustees, just my general relationships around me of who I have included, who now I want to include, right?
Mhm.
That general check-in will let you know whether it's time to just at least give us a call and see if there's something that needs to be changed or not. Otherwise, I would say every 3 to 5 years or when something substantial changes in your lives. So you enter or exit a relationship, you acquire or let go of uh,
Mhm.
um, assets or a multitude of assets that will impact, because those often have tax implications as we discussed, and they might call for reorganizing your estate. It's not just your wills and your powers of attorneys, right? Sometimes it's, do you need a holding corporation right now? Do you need a trust to be put in place? Is it time to
Mhm.
wind up those things because you're no longer using them and you're paying to maintain them, and then they're not benefiting you? So whenever you have big changes in your circumstances, it's at least a time to have the conversation. I
Especially
would,
for women entrepreneurs, right?
yes, yes,
Oftentimes, and as you were speaking, my little chipmunk was running,
yes,
that the business keeps expanding, right? So there'll be like, there's different players in it,
right,
and there's different valuations to it. You may end up with having like a holding company that holds your trademark, the assets of the business, and then subdivisions of the business,
that's right,
in who gets to have a say in it if something happens to you, right?
yes,
Is extremely important, that for women entrepreneurs, to have clear boundaries as to, who gets to claim part of that,
yes,
especially, if we're now into a second or a third relationship, because it happens, a second, third relationship, or like you said, the dynamic, you could have been, especially with blended families, that seems to be a little bit of musical chairs, that
yes,
you may come together with a new partner that has their kids. You may want to, and then you have your own kids. You may
mhm,
want to include those children. You may grow to see them as yours,
mhm,
right? And want to include them. Or in some cases that have sadly witnessed, in are cases where it's a new relationship, it's a new marriage, and one of the spouses passes away, and the surviving spouse inherits everything,
mhm.
but that doesn't include the children.
Yep, that's right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
the children of the original spouse, the spouse that passed away, may end up not receiving anything, or how you intended for your legacy to live on, right?
Yes.
We are extremely excited to say that, Marlene, who's a colleague, somebody I respect deeply, deeply, because of your family values, because of your personal values, right? You are going to be starting your own empowerment circle. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But what does it mean? It means that once a month, you're going to be able to, if when you become part of Powerful Women Today, to have those conversations, right? In a bit more intimate, in a safer space setting, where if you don't even, sometimes you don't even know the questions, you don't know what you don't know, but somebody else asks a question that kind of like, yeah, I want to know that, right? And it just provides that brainstorming, because women, we are often the caretakers of our families. And I am so excited. You have a brilliant article that is out in our spring issue of our magazine. We are very excited, and I'm going to put it it's little in the upper right corner, but we're figuring out how to make it bigger. But the issue is out today, so you definitely want to read. It is 5 key elements of protecting your family through your estate plan. And of course, Marlenne is one of our mentor experts of Powerful Women Today. You can connect with her. And there's so much more coming from her. And I'm telling you, not all lawyers are created equal. And Marlenne is someone that I trust with my with my decisions, and is one of the first people that I call whenever something's happening in my life. So thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your knowledge and your passion with us. And please check her article in our magazine. We'll put the link on the comments below, and as well as how to get a hold of Marlenne. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.